Girls, what are obvious hints guys never picked up on? Viewer edition. Story 1. I'm not sure I'd count them as hints I missed, but the ladies would probably feel they were. Number 1, 2 separate girls on 2 separate occasions came to my place, sat on my bed, and remarked how comfy it was. Since I barely knew them, and they were part of a friend group I hung out with, I went the easy route. Did nothing, made no move, simply commented that, yeah, I love how comfy my bed is. It weirds me out when girls I barely know who have connections back to my friend group do this stuff. Both girls ended up being forever single due to their choices in men. I feel this is more dodging a bullet than being oblivious. Number 2, one of those girls that used the bed comment had been dropping hints for quite some time. We didn't meet often, didn't really hang out except in the presence of friends, and half of her behavior with me would be flirty, while the other half would be disinterest. When my best friend would go to her place to just chat and I'd tag along because I was bored, she'd cuddle and hold my hand a lot. Yep, obvious sign. But I still knew next to nothing about her. I did a little digging through my friend to try to find out her intentions. If she was interested, then I was going to give her a shot and see where things would go. Basically, he told me I should ask her out, but I wasn't really convinced, especially since she was sending mixed signals. Oh, sure, she'd sit on my lap, cuddle with me, and hold my hand, interlocking her fingers with mine during those instances when I tagged along with my friend, but she never asked for my phone number, never called me, never offered her own phone number, talked a lot about other guys she was interested in, and was generally very, I don't care about you, in groups larger than my best friend and me. She even at one point dropped a hint that she was learning about intercourse from a guy friend, as if I would somehow offer to teach her while she was bragging to me about being with some other guy. I eventually just asked her, "Do you treat me any differently than any other guy?" And she said, "Not really." So that was it for her. She dropped a lot of hints over the years, but I stopped tagging along with my friend to visit her and stopped hanging out with that friend group so I didn't have to interact with her anymore. Number 3, a girl in high school who had been a childhood friend suddenly asked me out in a very public way to go to prom with her. I immediately assumed she was messing with me and told her no. After all, it was in front of the entire class. That spent most of high school basically making fun of me and bullying me, and we really hadn't interacted much with each other for most of high school. It was generally understood that she'd been dating 1 or 2 other guys all through high school, and by that point I was pretty sure I was not her type. She dated sports guys who cheated on her, and I was neither of those things. After getting out of high school and into the workforce, I slowly began to realize that she'd basically been dropping hints to me all through our childhood. She'd spent time in grade school talking me up like I was some cool guy, and she'd sometimes stand up for me. She'd also pick on me in that weird childish way you do for the people you have a crush on. She got really excited one time that I'd casually mentioned that my dad wants me to date you because he says your family has money. I was using it as an example of how stupid and silly parents could be, but she decided it was a point of pride to brag about. Anyway, I never really had eyes for her through grade school, and in high school, she stopped really talking to me and associating with me at all, so it was just a whatever thing. Anyway, not sure it was a dodging the bullet situation, but those are obvious things I missed, and it's probably for the best that I did. Number 4, a girl I worked with kept asking me to come hang out, and we'd do random nonsense together. I didn't really get it until some other new coworker was talking about dating people she worked with, and I was like, I'm never going to date a coworker. If things go south in that relationship, it would get awkward and bad really fast. The invites and such stopped shortly after that. But hey, not like I was going to break the rules for her. Maybe I should also mention that said girl also talked about the guy she was dating decently frequently. Probably why I didn't get it. Story 2. Considering the damage the Me Too movement has done, if women don't learn real fast they need to start being direct, they're going to find it continuously harder to get the guys they want. I realize it's how most women work, but it's a basic rule to pursue what you want, not wait for it to come to you, or in this case, wait for it or them to pick up on your signals to then come to you. You want it, you earn it. You don't bait it. Women don't normally have to worry about this because they get too much attention from men, to the point they're constantly filtering them out, and usually by chance able to get a man they mostly like. Except they still usually can't get their absolute favorite. In which case, again, they need to learn how to pursue by being assertive. Beep beep. Personally, I adore women who can be assertive. Beep beep. Or even perhaps aggressive. It tends to prove a few consistent traits about such women. Number 1, they know what they want and pursue it. No second guessing. No hawing about what they want in life. If they want it, they go for it. Number 2, you don't usually have to question what's on their mind because they will tell you. They're less apt to playing mind games, or play none at all, such as being passive-aggressive, guilting you to death, being unwilling to make a choice every once in a while, unlike others where they'll never be able to decide what to do for dinner, etc. Number 3, they can be more fun in the bedroom. This part's tricky because everyone's personality in the bedroom doesn't always match up with their personality as a whole. But I have noticed a trend where assertive and aggressive women are at least more communicative in what they like and don't like, and can be willing to take charge. I don't care how hot you are as a woman, if you lie there like a corpse expecting me to do everything, I'm walking out of there. And I mean that literally, as I've chosen to do that before. Number 4, they tend to be more confident. What does the confidence bring? Being less apt to jealousy, such as letting you have time with the dudes, not taking it personally if you find another woman attractive, and perhaps turn your head every once in a while instinctively. If anything, you're lucky and she's turning her head with you. Maybe even gives you a fist bump afterwards. Confidence means they're also more willing to contribute 50-50 to the household, going out, making plans, etc. Not saying all confident women are of this sort, but I do notice a much higher trend. I learned most of these hints later in life, but I'm glad I eventually did learn them. Sure, I look back and can get upset that I could have had all the relationships and fun I could ever dream of, had I even known half of them, but that's life. Although, to be fair, I was one of those clueless guys where I thought if a girl was flirting with me to the point of trying to kiss me or put her hands down my pants, I just assumed it was them trying to play a joke. I was also raised by a jerk of a father who passed his guilt onto me. He lost my mother by being a total prick, and raised me to never be one by constantly making me feel guilty if I ever liked a girl, crap like that. He guilted me so bad that I got so cold around other girls, they thought I didn't like them, even though, on the inside, I was screaming to say or do something. The joys of getting baggage from stupid parents and their mistakes. Those same girls could never understand the deep-rooted anxiety I had, and just how systemic it was. Especially since amongst the women, they've always considered me to be a hot guy, about a 9. They couldn't understand how a hot dude would have trouble with women, which, by the way, is proof that looks aren't everything, and I'm living proof of that. If you don't learn how to communicate with women and or get the balls to speak up, you're getting nowhere, which is why in some cases the average dudes have an advantage because right away they focus on these skills. Talking hot always beats walking hot. The only exception is if you're a 10 out of 10 on the level of like Timothée Chalamet. So good looking to the point most women are unable to control themselves around you. But even he's learned how to cope with his anxiety in a way that makes him endearing to women in how he talks. Story 3. I'm a guy and I'm a Christian, and this was when I was 14 years old. I'm 27 years old now, and I finally got this hint like 2 years ago. I was at church with my family. There was a girl with her family who was around my age. I knew a lot of hints, but this one threw me off big time. When church ended, the girl who was with her family was looking my way. She was acting very strange. She'd look my way, looking like she didn't care about anything at first, and the next moment she was breathing somewhat heavily and looking my way like she was hurt. I didn't do anything to upset her at all. When church was over, she seemed nervous, but she followed me and my family. I heard her light tapping feet across the floor, and I turned around and smiled, and she said, "Hi, how are you doing?" She looked at me, looked at the ground, and put her finger on her lips like she was looking for something, and then turned around and walked away. I asked my family, who saw the entire thing, and they were just as confused as I was. I asked my family, was there something I said? My brother said that they think either she's just plain weird or wasn't paying attention to where she was going. The next day was the first day of catechism, grades 1 through 9, go to a school on Sundays to learn more about God. And I saw the same girl at church who approached me at church. I introduced myself, and so did she. I'm not going to say some actual names, so let's just say her name was Allie. Allie was very shy around me, and always seemed like she wanted to tell me something, but couldn't get the words out. I could tell she could talk very well around her girlfriends, but when I was close by, she would get very shy. She invited me to chat with her on the playground during recess, so I did, even with her friends right there next to me. And I asked her what she wanted to talk about. She just stuttered, and the boys invited me to play football with them, so I said I would be right over shortly. I told her to come get me when she thinks about it. This went on for the entire semester, and the second to last day, Allie called out sick, and I got concerned. The last day, I asked her if she was okay and was feeling better, and she said she was better now. I told her I was glad to hear that, and I asked her if she wanted to play with the boys. And she said she wasn't a sporty girl. I said, okay then, I'll go play football. You can come over if you change your mind. She said okay, but her eyes looked somewhat down. Fast forward to when I was 25 years old, and I told my older cousin about the whole thing. I don't know how the conversation was brought up, but it was. She told me that I was a blockhead, and I asked her why she thinks I'm a blockhead, and she told me she was trying to ask you out and that she likes you. I never felt so stupid in my life. It's all good now, I guess, because she's engaged and seems pretty happy right now. Story 4. The social norms of women. Modern society is encouraging women to be assertive, beep beep, and forward, yet other women simultaneously shame those same women for doing it, and coming off as desperate. So now women have to play stupid games where they drop hints, and you're either in one of 3 situations. Number 1, guy catches on and plays along, leading to a relationship. Number 2, guy doesn't catch on, so he comes off looking dense. Number 3, guy catches on, but out of fear of being labeled an R or something in the event he's wrong, he pretends to be dense. Situation 2 and 3 then causes the girl to automatically assume the guy knows, but isn't reciprocating her feelings, and letting her down gently, when that's probably not the case. So she beats herself up over it, causing insecurity problems, which eventually evolves into problems with other aspects of her life. The whole thing could be solved if women and men created a single norm. Learn how to communicate with one another. You're a girl who likes a guy? Tell him. If he denies, oh well. Welcome to the club of getting let down. If he feels the same way but some other chick gets jealous and claims you're, the girl, acting desperately, literally scoff and say, I shot my shot and it paid off, honey. That junk doesn't work on me. But no, women read way too into men and think if he doesn't pursue you, it's not worth it. It means he doesn't like you, or he would have tried hitting on you already. For all you know, that dude is either too worried about repercussions from getting labeled a creep because the girl didn't like the advance, or he's content without a girlfriend, but open to having one if someone asks him out. That, or he's denser than the center of a black hole. Regardless, young men won't approach women anymore, and young women who grow old are getting sick of emotionally empty one-nighters with the same frick boys who, in a year, will move on to a younger, better girl. So unless society is willing to go back to women being feminine and men being masculine, then it's up to women to put themselves out there. Otherwise, y'all gonna die alone in your empty apartment with 10 cats, who after a week begin to eat your face because apparently cats do that craziness. Story 5. Had this girl I used to hang out with. She had told me she wasn't interested in me, and I took that as an okay and completely blocked off anything intimate between us. We were good friends anyway, so we'd always hang out and do stuff. Weeks later, we were chilling in my car. It's at night, and I'm suggesting I should go home when she tells me she wants to do something. I go, bruh, there's literally nothing to do at night. It's 12 a.m. She looks at me and says, I want to do something physical. Since she told me she wasn't interested, I suggested we throw a football. About a week later, she said to me, am I unattractive to you or something? Because you've ignored attempts at me trying to progress our relationship. Like, what? It was confusing because later she started dating this guy, and we had stopped talking because I joined the army. But she used to post on Instagram saying she missed me. She'd posted a lot. It got to the point that her boyfriend was wondering if me and her were doing it, so he asked me about it. Told bro to chill because I was 15 hours away, and told him she told me she wasn't interested in me. For those wondering, me and her aren't friends anymore. Met her family and everything, and sometimes I still talk to her sister because me and her were dumb cool. We don't talk anymore because I had kicked her out of my car. I told her to wear a seatbelt because my car beeps if they aren't on, and she didn't want to. So when I got to my house, I told her she wasn't going to be riding in my car without one because the sound's annoying. She complained about it and called an Uber to go home. I told her mom that her daughter's childish. Me and the mom are still cool. Thinking back, I'm dumb because she used to send me videos of her twerking and photos of her in lingerie when I told her I was into thighs, and even sent me photos of her thighs in nothing but her panties. I blew it off because of what she said. Story 6. If there's ever been a time like this for me, it's been when I was at a bar and the girl sitting next to me had started sharing her drink with me. She then said that she needed to go to the toilet and said that she was scared and didn't know where to go and asked me to come with her. So we both get up and she wraps her arms around mine and we walk over to the toilet. It was one of those one-person disabled access toilet rooms. I open the door and tell her I'll just wait outside for her. She tugs on my arm and gives me the puppy eyes and says, "Can you come in with me?" Man, talking about this makes me facepalm so hard. And so I agreed. We enter the bathroom and she goes over to sit down and she says, "Don't look." And so I just stand in the farthest corner of the toilet looking at the wall until she finishes. After that, she just stood up, washed her hands, opened the door, and walked back to our booth in the bar without acknowledging me. From here on out, she spotted another guy and started giving him a load of attention and being all touchy with him. I'd imagine to make me feel jealous, or to get the attention I wasn't giving her. Here's the kicker that makes this whole thing a lot less hard on me. I was 15 and she was 23. She was 8 years older than me. She was kind of like the type of girl who was an girl who loved attention and had daddy issues. She looked very young and was quite short, so she could pull off being 15, which is why it didn't seem weird, but it definitely was. Groomer activities. Just glad she didn't come up and start touching me in the bathroom. Only reason I regret it is because I still would have hit it. Imagine Avril Lavigne in the prime of her career when everybody was crushing on her. This girl looked quite like her during that era. I wouldn't hit it now, even despite that, but 15-year-old me regretted that dearly. Story 7. I had a regretful experience where I was temporarily working somewhere, and it was this beautiful girl that was my type working for some customer company. I didn't think anything of it at first, when, out of nowhere, the first day she just gave me a whole box of pizza. Without knowing me or speaking or anything, I just took it as her being friendly and nice, despite how people are, especially women nowadays. But then almost every day she would make an effort to see and speak to me on her way to the office. I still just took it as her being friendly and nice. Other occasions happened where I was thinking, is she trying to hint at me that she wants me to talk to her? Then one time, right before I wasn't there anymore, I was walking out at the same time as she was coming in, so as I do for most, I opened and held the door for her, which might not seem like anything, but when I did, she made this remark, and she said, "Oh, you're so sweet, I like that," and as she walked off, she was looking at me going off till she went around the corner. Now, I may be making too much of that, but as a guy who doesn't ever get those kinds of interactions with someone, being a quiet person and having a hard time with females, I just don't understand how a very beautiful woman like that would give that attention if it wasn't any interest there. But thanks to being a stupid introvert, the chance to find out passed, and I didn't get to know if it was something or not, and if so, how it could have been a good thing. I hate myself sometimes because of being an introverted, antisocial person. Story 8. I had a crush on a girl that I worked with while in high school. We eventually went on a few dates, but that ended when she went to college in California and I in Michigan. We still talked online, but had a falling out when she wanted me to come visit her, but I couldn't afford to go. I wanted to try to get back together when we both graduated, but she came home married. I hadn't talked to her in over a decade when she became a suggested friend on Facebook. I sent her a request, and she accepted. It turns out she had gotten divorced, never had kids, and lived only a few miles from me. One night she asked me to come over, and I eagerly did. I was expecting a booty call, but still wanted to be a gentleman, so I waited for her to make a move, which never seemed to happen. It wasn't until later that my dumb butt realized that she tried twice. In our conversation leading up to her asking me over, she had talked about how one of her fantasies was to do it in front of a fireplace. But when she offered to make a fire, I said that I wasn't cold. Then later, as I was getting ready to leave, she gave me a tour of her house, but then spent a long time showing me her room. But I thought that it was just part of the tour. I spent that night watching a movie, waiting for her to do something, and when she did, I didn't notice. If she had just leaned up against me, then things would have been different. Story 9. There was this girl I really liked. I just moved to the city, and she was one of my first friends there. She was absolutely friendly, beautiful, and confident, and we hit it off easily since I have a reputation of being friendly as well. Her friends became my friends. I met her family, and I treated them like my own. I helped her with school projects, and she once helped with house chores and my family business. We even went to a carnival fair and had a few moments, just the two of us, before meeting up with others. I always thought that she was out of my league and that I was just being a supportive friend. Years later, she left, she met a guy her family and friends didn't approve of, and started blocking us on her socials. And my heart just sunk down. I just lost a close friend. It was just recently, though, that one of her friends, then her mom, told me everything. That all this time she had a big crush on me. A part of me felt tremendous regret, asking myself if only I had the guts to tell her how I felt. She wouldn't have left. Her friends and family wouldn't have had to let her go. I would have never had to let her go. Her parents assured me it wasn't my fault, and I know that's true. I could only imagine how things could have been different. I'm very sorry, Em. Hope you're doing okay. Story 10. In my experience, 7 times out of 8, the girl is just flirting with you for funsies. She's dropping increasingly more obvious hints in order to gauge at which level you start to respond to them. The quicker off the mark you are, the more attractive she feels. Of course, that's the sole purpose for her flirting and hinting, to make herself feel attractive. Once the guy acts on her hints and flirts back, she's rebuffed and possibly even mocked about it. And then he joins the seemingly endless ranks of oblivious guys, when in fact he's just done with it being phony flirting. As a teenage guy, you quickly learn girls will happily exploit you and your feelings, just to make themselves feel better for a minute on a bad hair day. And of course, complaining about their behavior or portraying your actions as reasonable under the circumstances instead of pathetic makes you an incel who's liable to pop off at any moment. So yeah, guys, pretend to not pick up on the hints. The consequences of acting on them can be quite hurtful. Story 11. I was at this dispensary in Michigan on a work trip, and this cute girl that was my bud tender was so obvious, and I took a major loss that day. She was asking what I had planned the rest of the day. I was like, nothing. Finna smoke this, and we'll probably eat. That's about it. She then said, I love smoking too. I can't wait to smoke after work today. I so need it. I think this is a great strain you're getting. People buying it a lot, but I've never smoked this one before. I don't have any plans later when I'm off. I really have stuff to do later. I'd love to chill and smoke. I asked, what time are you off? She said 7. I said, not too long then. Grabbed my weed and left and got back to my car like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. There's way more, but long story short, I was like, wait, was she trying to link later? I'm so stupid. Story 12. 3 times from my adolescence that I remember quite vividly. Number 1, I'm 15 and in the back seat with a pretty hot girl who's a couple years my senior. We're being driven home by an adult chaperone from some school-related extracurricular thing, and she grabs my arm and nuzzles her face in my neck. I get very still and stare blankly into the void. Number 2, I'm 17, almost 18 at my high school graduation party. As things are winding down, the junior girl I invited says to me, I'm all wet. My brain short circuits and I say nothing. Number 3, I'm 21 at a house party during my gap year between college and grad school. It's 1 a.m. Everyone there's hammered. A group of girls surrounds me and one of them says, my friend thinks you're hot. I reply, that's nice. I go home alone and fall asleep. Now at 34, I look back on these episodes as equal parts hilarious and profoundly sad. Story 13. Girls drop hints for the same reason guys don't pick up on them. They're both nervous about being rejected. Girls act so subtly when they're into a guy that he can't possibly notice. And when they're not into a guy, they act way more flirtatious, to the point where a guy thinks it's a sure thing and gets chewed out for not respecting her body, making him not as likely to pick up on the more subtle hints. Here's a tip for the ladies. Not that kind. It's rare for a guy to reject an interested girl. We might have types, but most of that goes out the window when an actual woman shows interest in us. So don't be so subtle. Don't be so scared of rejection. Oh, and don't overdo the makeup when you're single. The kind guys might wet themselves if an 8, 9, or 10 walks up to them and says, hey, thinking they're being pranked or something. Story 14. Signs I missed from a girl that liked me. Same girl. She was always cold. I always gave her my coat like a good man. I only start getting cold around 0 degrees Celsius, 32 Fahrenheit. She still wanted to cuddle though. I got some food on my finger. She took my hand and sucked it off, using a lot of tongue for way longer than was necessary, while maintaining eye contact. Her shirt kept falling off her breast around me. Weird. I'm a good friend. I pulled it back into place. Wouldn't want her to be embarrassed. Eventually, she pulled off her shirt entirely, no bra, and shoved her tongue down my throat. That's when I started to suspect something. If I'm unsure about a woman's intentions now, I tell her that story, that I'm clueless about signals, and imply that I require a direct approach. Story 15. Weird, I went through some of these, but the women were actually not into me. Instead of making a move, I just asked them, what do you mean by that? And normally they just love me as a member of the family, as a brother most of the time, but that one actually messed with my head, was a female friend that basically begged me to sleep over at her house. Almost every day, I was her ride to work. Then her begging me to share a bed with her, using different blankets, and her asking me if I could donate my sperm in the future so she could have a child. And yet with each of those moments, she made sure I didn't get the wrong idea, telling me she had no interest in me in that way. Women can be very, very confusing. Story 16. It was my birthday, and this girl, which I'm pretty sure I loved and still do, sat on the couch and asked me to sit next to her. I'm excited, and I do. She said she's getting cold, and I offered to get us a blanket. We went to my room. I grabbed the blanket. As I did, she turned around and went, "Oh, what does this do?" and turned off the lights. I told her she's a dumb butt, grabbed her arm, and went to the couch because I was excited to cuddle. Man, I'm still depressed about it. I did end up kissing her on a separate occasion, but things went south because we had a fight. Like a year later, I'm chasing like I've never chased before. Story 17. I was 12 or 13. A girl at the party was paying extra attention to me and was hitting me really hard. We eventually get a playing tag, and we're running around. She runs behind the garage to this secluded garden area. She immediately turns and looks at me and closes her eyes, pouts her lips, and starts breathing super heavily. Me, being the oblivious boy I was, stop, slap her arm, and yell, "Tag, you're it," and run off. She stopped paying attention to me after that, and it wasn't until many years later that I realized that she wanted me to kiss her. Still, I get a chuckle out of how oblivious I was, though. Story 18. I think the most obvious hint that I, in hindsight, ignored. I was visiting a buddy at his college, and we were hanging out with some of his friends and their friends. There was this girl in town for the weekend visiting, just like me. We talked throughout the night, and she looked me right in the eyes and said, "You're really cool. I'll be here until tomorrow morning. I have room in my bed if you want to crash here tonight instead of going back with your friend." My response, "Oh, nice. I like big beds. Lots of room to spread out. I suppose I should go back with my friend now." Story 19. A college girl was selling some magazines for a charity once. She was too cute and nice for me to do my usual be rude to unsolicited salespeople routine, but she started hugging me before and after I agreed to buy the cheapest set. Then she says, "Wow, I didn't even have to offer you a lap dance," and started asking where I lived. The conversation kinda died when I said my then wife and I live down the road. Didn't realize what went on until I told my wife the story. Story 20. If you're a girl watching this, look, we guys get hints too. Sure, we can be very dumb, but we act nice and think, "Oh, she didn't mean it." Because we have this fear of being judged as a creep that is having us functioning at 200%, trying to make sure you're comfortable and that we don't make you uneasy in any way. So if a guy doesn't take your hint, chances are we're just looking out for your comfort. Story 21. A lot of guys pick up on the hints, and a lot of guys know if they act on them, but are mistaken, that can torpedo the situation, the relationship, possibly even your reputation. I made it known to my girlfriend long ago that if she wants something, tell me straight up. I do the same likewise, and the relationship is better for it. The cat and mouse game playing is for the birds, fellas. Story 22. Mostly the reason guys never pick up is because they don't want to jump to conclusions. We don't want to scare away girls and seem creepy, and don't want to accidentally force someone into a relationship unknowingly. And we like to answer logically to be silly. By the way, I don't have the balls to flirt back. Story 23. Thinking back, there were so many hints I missed back in high school that I only realize now because I have more experience with women. Gotta remember that for the majority of guys, they don't get a lot of attention from women. So they don't know what is normal and what is a hint. Though some hints are more obvious than others. Speaking from personal experience. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.